What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Drive for Show, DFS for Dough here on RotoGrinders. Happy to be back with you, talking golf. A little bit of a weird schedule here to start the fall swing with the President's Cup sandwiched in last week. We've actually only had one fall event so far. We get back to the usual fall event schedule here throughout the month of October with tournaments every week. So we'll be here breaking that down for you each and every Tuesday evening. To help do that, you've got myself, Justin Van Zuiden. STL Cardinals 84 is the daily fantasy handle. You've got Notorious, Derek Farnsworth alongside as always. And Noto, haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. How you been?
Yeah, I've been good. Enjoyed the President's Cup. It was a little bit of a blowout, but yeah, love seeing the motion from the guys and the crap talking. I think that's a lot of fun. So what'd you think of that, Ben?
Yeah, pretty wild that, the U.S. kind of swept the first day there. Every match was fairly close, but they get that 5-0 lead. You think, this is going to be just brutal in terms of a blowout. And then the international comes back. And, obviously, even being an American, seeing the international squad win all 5 of those matches the second day with the Canadian crowd and, Tom Kim and Sung Jae getting pumped up. It was pretty cool to see that. The Americans kind of studied the ship after that and then got, another victory, which seems to become commonplace for that event, but it was pretty cool to see that complete 180 from day one to day two. And then the Americans made an interesting decision to put all of their big guns out early in the singles on Sunday to try to clinch it. And that's pretty much what happened. So went according to plan there after that second day for the U.S. squad. And, the Ryder Cup gets all the attention, and it's weird to me. I mean, it's the same type of thing. Like, the President's Cup kind of gets this rap that it's just, the little brother to the Ryder Cup. And I'm not really sure why, it's kind of like, why don't people like the PGA Championship as a major? It's tough to quantify, but I don't know. It just seems like it doesn't get as much attention in the national media world as the Ryder Cup does.
Yeah, at least the Twitter timeline was a little bit fired up, at least the first couple of days. So I don't know. There's just not a lot of excitement in golf at this point of the year. So just anything a little bit different is always good. I love match play. Talk about it a lot on this show that, they need to bring it back. And this is really the only, source of match play that we get. So I thought it was fun. I love Scheffler getting into it with Tom Kim a little bit. Even Cantlay showing some emotion after making his putt. I think that was on Saturday, the final hole to win. So yeah, I thought it was fun, but it would be helpful if the international team could be a little more competitive.
I'm not going to be able to find it now. It was just somebody random, I think, that posted it and it got retweeted onto my timeline. But somebody had a picture like with Scheffler and Henley in the background when Tom Kim was kind of going nuts after making the putt to win the one match. And they zoomed in on Scheffler in the image and said Tom Kim messed with the wrong ex-con, which I thought was pretty funny. But the Scheffler jail jokes continue. Poor guy. That's always going to follow him around. But yeah, it was. It's fun to see that. I mean, it beats the old normal. Not that we don't like playing DFS for these types of tournaments, but you get some of these tournaments here in the fall, and it's, not to pick on anybody specifically, but like Patrick Fishburne is $9,400 this week, and I just picked a random name. Of guys who are at Matt Kuchar's back near the top of the pricing scale. Again, it's just we get a lot of weak fields in these fall events. A lot of the big guys, we've lost some players to live, obviously. And a lot of the big guys kind of take this time of year off after the President's Cup. So we're going to see a lot of weak fields. Something a little bit different there, I think was cool and nice to see that kind of break up the monotony of some of these tournaments, because we're going to see some ugly fields here over the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep, for sure. So let's get into it, I guess.
All right. I can hardly contain your excitement with let's get into it, I guess, he says. We've got the Sanderson Farms Championship this week. I'm drawing it out a little bit so that we get, I at least got to make sure we get like 25 minutes here before we get through everything. It's still a filibuster tactic. But we've got the Sanderson Farms Championship this week. This tournament used to be contested as like a secondary event. It was always alongside one of the WGC events, or it was alongside a major. Was always kind of a lower tier field event. Then they elevated it to its own tournament after the pandemic. Had a few years where we got some pretty strong fields here. But then, the last couple of years, it's been played like right after the Ryder Cup. And now this year, right after the President's Cup, to where we're back to pretty weak fields again, which is kind of where it was, previous to 2020, where it was always kind of a secondary event. I did notice that there has been no multiple time winner of this event since 2004. So the last 20 years, we've had a different winner. Well, 19, I guess this will be the 20th year. We've had a different winner every time. It's a course that generally yields a lot of scoring. You often see the winning score around that kind of 20 under range with plenty of reachable par fives on the course as well. So what do we make of the course and weak field this week?
Yes, we got the Country Club at Jackson, par 72, almost 7,500 yards, but it definitely doesn't play as difficult as it might look on paper. It was the fifth easiest course on tour last year, pretty much regularly in the top 15 in terms of difficulty on the easy side of the scale. So can expect a lot of birdies. This course has been pretty friendly to bombers. If you look at Data Golf's course fit tool, it skews very heavily to distance over accuracy. So if you want to take that route, certainly don't mind it. We have had a mix of winners here. I mean, Ryan Armour won here, so driving distance isn't necessarily a prerequisite, but I think it will help this week. 5 water hazards on the course, Bermuda greens, pretty average size greens that should be pretty easy to hit on average. So not looking at around the green all that much, but I think you can look at birdie or better percentage, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained approach like we always do. And more than anything, I'm just looking at guys that are in decent form and can make birdies.
Yeah, for sure. You got to be a scorer to contend here. Par 5 scoring, I don't mind taking a look at, and we've even talked about potentially looking at bogey avoidance in the past for, so even guys who can play well around the green. I mean, if you're making birdies, it doesn't help on these easy courses if you're giving some of them back with cheap bogeys too. So bogey avoidance is kind of a metric I've come to look at a little bit more in these types of events. Credit to Noto for mentioning that one of the shows maybe 2 or 3 months back. Which I thought was an interesting angle that has kind of come to fruition for me, at least a little bit, as I look at stats and kind of build my rosters. So all around good golfers, guys in good form. And it certainly doesn't hurt to have guys that have had some success here, though. I do like embracing variance in these types of tournaments where, it's a weak field. It's going to just become a birdie contest. That tends to increase the natural variance of a tournament. So I usually try to cut my player pool way down. I probably will expand it a little bit more, at least for compared to where I usually am. Still narrower than what most people are, but maybe I've got 25, 26 golfers in my pool this week instead of 18 to 20, just because of the nature of the event. We do have just 132, I believe, in the field instead of the full 156. So it gets to be that time of year where we start to become a little bit more compressed with daylight hours. So a lot of these tournaments in the fall will be condensed in terms of the size by, maybe they knock out 12 or 24 golfers to help make sure that daylight doesn't become a problem. So anything else before we go to the players here? Yeah,
apologies are in order. Mr. Gerg says Yeager's in the field, so it must be a strong field. Our resident Stephen Yeager fan, Mr. Gerg, in the chat. And J3 wants Dean to tell us some golf plays. He's in the chat on every show, Juan Dean. So we need to bring him on one week.
We might have to send a page, an AOL instant message to Dean if we want him to give golf picks. But we'll try our best to get him on sometime, but probably won't be today. All right, let's dig in. So our 3 golfers above 10K are Keith Mitchell, Seamus Power, and Mackenzie Hughes. Which I can comfortably say is the first time that statement has ever been uttered, with those 3 being the 3 most expensive in any tournament. Hughes is actually the only player who was in the President's Cup rosters last week that has made the trip down. This course is in Mississippi, so the trip down from Canada to Mississippi, fairly long trip. Hughes is the only one that is in this field that played in the President's Cup last week. So for what it's worth, he's your 3rd most expensive option. He did finish T4 at the ProCore Championship a few weeks ago. which was the event that started the fall swing. And he did win this tournament a couple years back. So, but still, these aren't the names you're used to seeing at the top of, the top of the pricing scale. Keith Mitchell has missed the cut all 3 times he's played here. Powers missed the cut 2 out of 3 times. And people are going to roster these guys because they have to play somebody. You have to use your salary somewhere. But, to be honest, I don't really have a strong take on wanting to play any of these 3 guys at the top.
Yeah, if you look at the outright odds, the best in the field is 25-1. We typically see, Scheffler, if he's in the field, it's like 4-1. If anybody else is in the field.
Have we ever had a tournament where it's been that long of odds? I've seen a lot where it's like 16 or 18.
Yeah. Not 25? That I can remember for sure. If you go all the way down to like the lower nines, it's only like 33-1. So you're really not getting that much of a difference in win equity up top. So I kind of agree with you. I don't have to force anyone up here into your lineups. The Keith Mitchell course history is awfully scary. I kind of always worry about him in a birdie fest when it comes to his putter. Seamus Power, no way he's ever been 10K before. He's been in decent form, decent course history, but I think some of the guys in the 9Ks are just as good, if not better. Hughes is probably my favorite. He did win here last year, and we typically see guys that play in the President's Cup or Ryder Cup. Like when they get that first nod, they kind of play with a little more confidence moving forward. So maybe Hughes can do that a little bit. He did gain 6.9 strokes ball striking his last time out. I think that was at the Pro Core Championship, finishing in the top 5. So at least he's got the course history, the form, and a little bit of confidence after playing well at the President's Cup. But to your point, I don't think we need to start up here in single entry and stuff.
Yeah, I most definitely would not, in a single entry build, take anybody from this range. I would probably go with Seamus Power if I picked one. We have seen him thrive in weaker field birdie fest. Like if there's one prototypical type of course where he tends to have success, this would be it. It's not a strong take by any means, but if you're forcing me to pick one of those 3, he would probably be my pick, though most of my lineups will start in the 9s, or even in the. I think you could start in the high 8s, but probably the 9s for most of my rosters. I know a lot of people like JJ Spawn this week. I'll let you touch on him, but we've got quite a few options in here. Maverick McNeely's been in pretty good form. Nick Dunlap, if you've read my content over any period of time, I'm kind of a fan of him. Ben Griffin has been probably the most consistent guy in this whole field. And then Fishburne, who I picked on earlier at 9,400, Cole, Patrick Rogers, and Mr. Gerg's boy Yeager at 9K. So 6 or 7 decent enough options there, given the strength of this field. Anybody that's standing out to you in the 9K range?
Yeah, you mentioned that I like JJ Spawn. So he didn't have a single top 25 in his first 14 starts of the season. He was pretty much terrible the first 7 months, but ever since, he's made 7 straight cuts. He's got 3 top 10s during that stretch. He's gained over 22 strokes on approach. He's positive in all 4 of the strokes gained categories during that stretch. So I think he's pretty interesting at 9,900. He rates out as number 2 in my model overall, 4th most expensive on DraftKings, 9th most expensive on FanDuel. So you're getting some value over there. I like McNeely. I was playing around with the course fit tool on Data Golf, and if you do the relative importance, it kind of takes away approach and is mostly just driving distance and putting. And that's 2 things that McNeely does pretty well. He's a good driver of the ball, a good putter, and he's coming off of a miscut. So I'm hoping that ownership projection that we currently have on him will come down a little bit. Outside of that, I don't know. Griffin's always fine in these weaker fields. He's actually number 1 in strokes gained on Bermuda courses over the last 2 years in this field. Patrick Rogers been pretty consistent. Eric Cole's got to get the first win soon. I thought he was playing the mini tour once again. Just can't help himself. Went back to the mini tour. I think he won the event, so he's coming off of a win. He's in good form.
That's crazy. And I'm sure the guys who finish in second place.
It's got to be a competitive thing, right? Because he made a bunch of money the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a competitive drive, I guess. I don't know. I would think at that stage you wouldn't do that, but I'm not him, and I wish I was. So I can't fault him, I guess. Although if I'm finishing in a mini tour event, if I'm like a mini tour grinder, right? And I finish second in an event and I lose out on whatever the minuscule first place prize is. If I lose out to a guy that's won X millions on the PGA Tour, I'm gonna be pretty pissed about it. Interview somebody who come in second to him, and I'm curious what their take would be. But I think Griffin is clearly the guy that's going to stand out to most people in here. He finished T2 here last year, playoff loss. Had the lead on Sunday, finished T24 his first time here. Been pretty consistent throughout the season. A guy we've been playing in stronger field events than this, 4 top 10s, most of them in the latter half of the summer. So Griffin, I like a lot. Dunlap, I'm just a big fan in general of his upside. He's won 2 events in the calendar year. Did have a T5 in the first playoff event at the St. Jude. Boomer bust kind of guy, but he hits it a long way. He hunts flags. He's aggressive. And I think that's what you want, guys who are going to be aggressive looking for birdies in this type of field. The $9,700 price tag might scare some people away from Dunlap, but I like him a good bit in GPPs. I think the ownership on him will come down just a bit, but I guess you do have to spend your money somewhere. And there's not, a ton of guys like above the average salary per golfer this week. So it is all somewhat relative in the grand scheme of the whole field. Jaeger, just because, we're obligated to mention him, has finished between 25th and 30th here each of the last 3 years. Has kind of cooled off after his pretty hot run there in the earlier part of the year. But he's at 9K, and, I think he's fine as well. So anything else you want to mention on this 9K range?
Jaeger's another example of guys that when they get that first PGA Tour win, there's just such a dip in their performance like the next 6 months. I don't know if it's just like a weight off the shoulders thing or what it is, but he was like in the 10Ks in these weaker fields and just dominating every week, and now he just hasn't had a good finish for quite some time.
Yeah, it is a little bit strange. I don't know if it's a mental thing or what, but you'd expect that maybe you trend a little bit better after you do that. But those numbers have come to fruition for quite a few guys after they've gotten their first win. All right, let's go ahead and move down into the 8Ks here. We've got, again, some names that you generally wouldn't expect in here. Chan Kim is 8,900. Matt McCarty, a guy that a lot of people probably aren't going to know, has been basically the leader on the Korn Ferry Tour. Got into this event by virtue of winning 3 times. He also has a multitude of other top 10s on the Korn Ferry Tour this year. So he'll have a full PGA Tour card starting next year. And there'll be a whole bunch of new players starting at the beginning of the year. That used to be around this time where the new Korn Ferry guys would come in, but a little bit delayed now with the new schedule. But McCarty is in because he's won 3 times. He's priced basically at the minimum on FanDuel, but he is 8,800 on DraftKings. So it's an interesting conversation to have with him. Svensson, Vegas, Kuchar, Stevens, English, Hostler, Hubbard, going down the rest of the 8K range. What are you looking at?
I usually don't play on FanDuel in these, smaller field, weaker field events, but just because of that price point, I think I'm going to play some McCarty. I'm hoping he's not too crazy high owned. He's like 50-1 in the outright market compared to other guys that are $7,000 on FanDuel, 600-1, 1,000-1, 1,500-1. So clear mispriced on their end. Even if he's like 20, 30%, I still think he's pretty strong play, just given how good he's been. You mentioned the form, 12 straight made cuts, 6 top 5s, including 3 wins during that stretch. And he's top 10 in pretty much every category except driving distance on the Korn Ferry Tour. Like Chan Kim quite a bit. He's number 3 overall in my model. He's a guy we've talked about quite a bit on this show. He's been very good on easy courses and finally showing the results. 3 top 30s in his last 4 starts. Really good at bogey avoidance, top 4 in this field, top 10 in birdie or better too. So I think he's a guy to look at 8,900. Johnny Vegas, really good ball striker, and he's a bomber. I kind of like him quite a bit. And that's
just whether or not he'll make enough putts.
Yeah, and if he does, he's going to win. He won the 3M not too long ago. So he's got some upside. It's weird he's won 4 times on tour. Anyway.
Those are the 4 weeks in his career that he's putted well.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you have Mac Meisner all the way down to 8K. He's just underpriced. He continues to play well every week. I know he missed a cut at the Pro Tour, but prior to that, he was pretty awesome. So those are my favorites in the 8s. Anyone else you want to add?
Yeah, I like those guys as well. Svensson is the other name I'll add. I tend to like him a little bit more than most generally as well. 7th and 13th, the last 2 starts for him, and just seems to be a guy that doesn't look to be super mispriced in this field. He finished 16th here last year, so not running out to say, hey, you've got to play Svensson by any means, but certainly a guy that I will keep in my GPP pool, and I'll have a lot of these guys. It just fits the balanced build nicely. And if you're not spending on the 10K guys, I mean, you can mix and match quite a few guys in this range. Sam Stevens, I don't mind as well. Again, maybe a little bit more risk reward type, but he will be in my GPP pool also. And then Rico Hoey all the way down at 8K. Another guy that has quietly been playing pretty consistent golf, hasn't missed a cut since the US Open. And he's been playing in a lot of these summer, like weaker field tournaments. He was 26th at the John Deere, 2nd at the ISCO, and 8th at the Barracuda. So similar types of events to this. Hoey has played well, so I like him at 8K. Anything else in that range for you?
Should do it for me. And yes, J3, Steve is producing.
Steve is producing and following the Mets, who have made the playoffs after their wild doubleheader win over the or doubleheader split with the Braves yesterday that left the Diamondbacks on the outside looking in. But Steve right now is not tilting because the Mets are leading 8-4 in the 7th inning. So, and just this morning, right, we have time. This is a terrible golf event. And this still has some value longer term. But I was telling Steve before you hopped in, I'm a Cardinal fan. Obviously, the 2 years that the Cardinals won the World Series, they won the World Series in 2006. They won like 85 games, and they won the World Series in 2011, where they were like 12 games out of a playoff spot in August. And nobody expected them. Like everyone expected them to lose in the first round of the playoffs, both of those years. And the years where they've had like good teams and made the playoffs, they haven't. Baseball is such a weird sport. Like all these years where the Dodgers have had these, super teams, anything can happen in these cases in the wild card rounds, a 3-game series. The division series is a 5-game series. And then even the longer series, a 7-game series, a 7-game sample size in baseball is like nothing. So anything can happen in these series. So if I'm giving one betting tip for betting baseball playoffs, it's like, even if they win the World Series, like betting the Dodgers at +3-1 right now makes like no sense because yes, they're probably the most likely team to win, but just the way the baseball playoffs work, man, if you're betting on baseball stuff, you got to just, in my opinion, again, this is one man's opinion, you've got to just do random stuff, random plus money stuff. So my bets this morning were 28-1 on the Royals to win the World Series and 25-1 on the Mets to win the World Series and 150-1 on an exact World Series matchup of Royals versus Mets. The Royals won already and the Mets are ahead 8-4. So the first day is going pretty well. Obviously a long way to go, but the $25 to win about $4,000 if it's Mets Royals in the World Series. That's what I'm rooting for.
Love that. And most would say, golf, similar, very volatile. So maybe just throw some money at some random plus odds as well.
And then Scheffler wins every time when he's 4-1. And then that makes my theory look dumb. But you just never know. So, so I'm on Team Steve. We're rooting for the Mets. And plus, the Cardinals fans, we don't like the Brewers anyway. So hopefully somebody can knock off the Dodgers along the way and the Mets can, get through it. So, Mets Royals, if one of those two teams wins the World Series, I'll be happy. If they meet up against each other in the World Series, I'll be very happy. So that's my rooting interest, which has distracted me for about 2 minutes from talking about this golf tournament. But that's okay. That was an executive decision to talk baseball for a second.
Talk a little baseball, get the chat going. This is great.
That's right. So your mileage may vary. Don't go betting on all those random teams, but a couple of baseball long shot sweats. I mean, It's not like we're betting the Panthers to win the Super Bowl or something. Baseball, anything can happen. Make the playoffs, anything can happen. All right, let's dig into the 7Ks here. Doug Gim, Justin Lower, Charlie Hoffman is up into the 7Ks again, though he has been showing at least some signs in recent months. Andrew Novak is in here. Ricky Fowler. Just not a lot of guys that have shown a ton of form in recent months. This field is going to get really really quickly here. So anything in the mid to upper 7Ks that you're like itching to get here?
The model loves CT Pan, which I'm trying to figure out. He's a good iron player, doesn't make a lot of bogeys, but man, he's like top 10 or missing the cut by a mile. Some of his recent results, 141st, 152nd, 100th. So I don't know about that one. Maybe I'll just blindly trust it in tournaments. Yeah, it's funny. Lucas Glover and Ricky Fowler are like cheap in this field, and I don't want to play them. They've just been so bad lately. I'll play a little bit of Grillo. He's been making a lot of cuts recently. I think he's got 6 or 7 straight made cuts. He's made 3 straight cuts at this event, top 5 last year. I'll play some Novak. Justin Lower is always a guy I like in Birdie Fest because he makes a lot of putts. And that's pretty much it above 7,500.
Yeah, not a whole lot that I like in this range. I don't mind CT Pan, but just not a whole lot that I'm getting excited about. Though right at 7,500 there, I do like Norlander a good bit.
Yeah.
And Norlander, if you remember back a couple of years ago, like 2-3 years ago, he was a pretty consistent, 8K kind of guy. Really fell off a cliff for a while, but has kind of gotten back to the results a little bit more hit or miss. But the course history, I think, is what intrigues me even more here. The last 4 years, 2nd, 24th, 4th, and a couple of 4th place finishes there. So, and you might have mentioned him while I was sitting there staring at data, but if you did, it was just a double love for Norlander. I know we both like him this week. So he is definitely my favorite in that middle to upper part of the 7K range. Luke List, a champion here at 7,400. But not in the greatest of form over the past year. A bunch of missed cuts. He's missed more cuts than he's made. I've seen some love for Jacob Bridgman this week as we get lower in the 7K range. The only guy that I really like stands out somewhat would be for upside, potentially Thor Bjornsson at 7,200. But, talented guys in here that we just haven't seen much from either lately or on the PGA Tour in general, like Goddard, Berger. Just haven't seen the spark out of these guys over the last 6 months. And, there's going to be somebody in here that plays well. Just pegging who that is probably going to be a little bit tough. So anything else under or above 7K and below 7,500 that you're looking at?
Yeah, I do like Nick Hardy at 7,100. Playing a little bit better recently. He's got good course history here, T5, T26 the last 2 years. So I'll play some of him. Tends to play well on Bermuda grass. Talk about driving distance. Michael Thor Bjornsson is a really talented young guy that hits it as far as anyone in the field. Play some of him. And then, I don't know, Cam Champ one here. He tends to play the same course as well each year. I can get down with him a little bit at 7,400. It's probably Kevin Yu, another guy that bombs it. But yeah, I don't feel particularly great about anybody.
I don't either. Hardy, I'll probably throw in my player pool as well. And again, it's all relative with some of the playing better for some of these guys. A lot of the made cuts are still kind of in the 40s and 50s. Our projections like Valimaki a little bit. Make what you will of that. I guess he's had flashes as well at 7K. Bramlett's another guy that I've played in the past, but has not shown a whole lot of form. Like it's the same refrain for all of these guys here in the lower part of the 7K range. And once we get into the 6s, it's just the same thing, even just a little bit worse. We'll just open up the floor at this point. I said I had to make it 30 minutes here with the help of my talk of the Mets for 2 minutes. I'm at 29:40. So I've successfully navigated my 30 minutes of talking about this tournament. So we can just talk values. What do we like or what do we tolerate here?
Yeah, there's not much. Projections like Hayden Springer, Austin Smotherman coming off of a T7 at the Pro Core. think he made the cut here last year. But man, just looking at recent form, there's like nothing. Like nobody even has like a couple made cuts in a row down here. If you want a course history angle, Kevin Streelman, T31 or better in 4 of his last 5 years at this event. But
Man, I've tried him so much. I tried him at the John Deere, and he at like 0.6% ownership. I don't know. I think I'm out on that guy.
Yeah, I'm just searching for anything I can.
We're digging. That's
understandable. What about Adrian Dumont de Chassart? He was pretty good over on the DP World Tour for a while.
Yeah, I think Smotherman's kind of my guy in here. I think he'll probably end up getting a little bit of buzz. Like right now, we've got him at 1%. But you mentioned the T7 at the Pro Core, another guy that's played pretty well here in the past. Or I guess not. I was mixing him up. Missed the cut here last year, T67 the year before, but has posted some decent results over the past couple of months. Snuck in a couple top 10s there. So if you're looking for a punt value, you could do worse. He's 6.6K. I could see throwing in.
And the problem with roster and the 10K guys is you have to go down here. It's just like you don't feel good about the 10K guys or the 6K guys.
Right. So just stick in the 7, 8, and 9K range, which just seems to make the most sense. I mean, I'll have Smotherman in my player pool. I'll probably grab another like 1 or 2 guys in here, but there's just not a whole lot of consistency with anybody in here. Like, if you think Taylor Montgomery can find the putter, but he's been so bad for 3 or 4 months. Adam Schenk has missed the cut in 8 of his last 10 starts. It's pretty ugly. Davis Riley's made his last 2 cuts. He was good once upon a time. 2-3 years ago, he popped for a win randomly at one point. So Riley, I suppose you could include in some GPPs, but it's basically just throwing darts and hoping something sticks down here. I'd probably end up with him in my player pool, but Smotherman for sure. Not a whole lot else that I feel great about.
I agree. Got a question about Michael Kim. We're just looking at his numbers. I mean, he's 0 for 2 here. I think he's missed 3 cuts
7,300.
Not that cheap. I mean, he's more talented than a lot of these guys, but
yeah,
form hasn't been there.
Has once again also missed 5 of his last 6 cuts. It's just going to be saying the same thing about most of these guys. And look, about 65, 70, 75 guys got to make the cut here this week. So somebody's going to do it, but I mean, somebody from the 6Ks is probably going to finish like top 10. I hope it's Smotherman, because if it's not, it's probably going to be somebody I don't have. But
yeah, I think Smotherman's my guy too.
All right. I'm invoking the mercy rule. This tournament is brutal. We don't have as many live viewers as usual. It's, the fall swing is tougher with the weak fields here. I don't think we're going to try to fill a snake draft tonight. I don't want to be sitting around for 15 minutes trying to get one to fill. So tell your friends. We'll bring it back next week if there's enough of you watching live. If you're interested, you can hit us up on Twitter or something, or we can try to navigate it in the chat next week, like at the beginning of the show, and make sure there's enough people around for the snake draft. So,
do we have any decent events coming up?
Define decent, my friend.
Oh, we got the new Utah event coming up next week.
That's right. New course. There'll be absolutely nothing to talk about next, unless more guys are going to play at that event because it's new.
The course is sweet. I think they'll probably tear it up, but
so
awesome.
It's not going to be like that stupid one the Byron Nelson one that I forget, the TPC Craig Ranch or whatever it was.
I wouldn't think so, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the stands, because it's just everything's just rock. So I don't think they're gonna be able to build very many grandstands or have many fans out there. So we'll see.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm just looking at a few images now. Well, it'll be interested to see what. So that's the Black Desert Championship. I'm just trying to see if I can Google a field list here. Here's a look at the players who have committed. Well, it's probably not good when they start the notable players list with Aaron Baddeley.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not going to be. That's going to be worse than this one, I think.
We played the course 2 months ago. It's like $300, but you got unlimited snacks. And they would just come by like every hole, and we would just be like, do we grab more? Just stuffing our bags full of snacks. So if you're looking for free snacks on a $300 course.
Well, that's still cool to be able to play a PGA course.
It was awesome.
So Keith Mitchell's not. Seamus Power might be the most expensive golfer next week.
We do have the Shriners the week after. That'll be a decent one.
That'll be a decent field. Yeah, Mike Weir is in the field. I am making an early statement that the tournament next week. Look, everybody, tune in. Absolutely tune in. But it might be the worst field we've ever broken down. It is not an exaggeration.
Worse than like Bermuda?
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. Like if you look at all the guys above like 9K this week, like only 3 or 4 of those guys are committed. And there's nobody like added that's not playing this week that would be generally higher priced.
You know what the PGA Tour should do? They should let the live guys play in these fall events.
Yeah, I mean, we got Mike Weir and Kisner and it's awful. It's just horrible. But tune in though. We'll talk about it. At least we'll let Noto do a hole by hole breakdown of the course, and then
I'm very familiar with the rocks and where not to hit the ball.
Found them aplenty.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll be back to talk. I know I have really set the stage. At least it's a new tournament and a new course, and maybe some guys will commit late to play. We'll see. But until then, good luck this week. Enjoy another week of football, MLB playoffs. Great time of year on the sports calendar. Check us out at RotoGrinders.com. Get yourself some RotoGrinders premium combo subscription. We've got some links. Steve can drop some links in the chat as well if you're interested. Never been a better time to sign up for RotoGrinders premiums. Tons of sports in the mix right now. So we'll let that go for tonight, and we'll be back next Tuesday. Thanks to Steve for producing in the midst of the Mets Game 1 playoffs. Thanks to Noto for joining me. I'm Justin. We hope you have a great week, everybody, and we will see you later.